Welcome to another movie plot and enjoy the memories. It begins during a centuries-long peace treaty between the forces of darkness and the agents of light. While making a deal with the Dark Witch Darya, the low-ranked mage Anton got recruited into the light side's police force known as the Night Watch. His apprentice and girlfriend Svetlana reads aloud a book about Tamerlane and the legend of how he came to possess the Chalk of Fate. The artifact possesses the ability to rewrite history, so those would come from all over the world to find it at the center of a labyrinth. The sorcerer Tamerlane worked out that if he rode his mount straight through the maze walls, his army could decimate the weaker defenders from the inside. Upon reaching the center, he shows mercy to a young soldier who surrenders and enters the temple, where the monk doesn't even bother to protect the chalk. He just smiles and waits for the young warrior to backstab Tamerlane, but it's too late as he uses the chalk to send himself back in time. This time he cuts down his killer, and from that day forward Tamerlane never made a mistake that he couldn't rectify with a bit of graffiti. The patrolling Svetlana and Anton receive a call that an old woman has been stuck with a needle by one of the enemy, allowing him to suck her life force from a distance. The agents of light locate the woman, but Svetlana takes off running after the masked assailant while the heavy smoker Anton trails slowly behind. The perp leads them into an alternate plane of existence called the Gloom, forcing his pursuers to put on their glasses simply because of all the damn flies. He then crosses into the second level of the Gloom, where only the great ones like Svetlana can enter, but not Anton, who calls out for her to come back. She turns around, but the Dark One sneaks up and sticks Sveta with a needle, who's revealed to be Anton's estranged son Yegor. Not knowing who he is, she attempts to destroy the vampire with her UV flashlight, but Anton manages to break through the barrier, throwing off her aim. He pulls Svetlana back from the Gloom into the middle of traffic, but doesn't tell her that the Dark One that he just let go is actually his son. Meanwhile, the General of Darkness Zavulon has bound his witch fiancée Alisa with a ring that lets them share their feelings. They rent a hall at the Hotel Cosmos, where they plan to hold Yegor's birthday party as part of Zavi's own sinister agenda. He gets angry when learning that Yegor left behind his ski mask that the light agent Simeon brings back to Night Watch headquarters. Anton and Svetlana stop off at a bar for beers, where the immortal leader of light Gesser comes to retrieve the amateur Great One. Anton stays to finish off his beer and talk to the owner Zoar about his powerful mage girlfriend who makes him feel inadequate. Zavulon sends Yegor's teacher Galina to retrieve the evidence, so she intercepts Anton on his way home to ask for his help. He refuses out of pride, I guess, but that night breaks into the Night Watch's archives and steals the beanie before it can be linked to his son. When Galina returns home later, she's murdered by an unseen person, and her body's found the next morning by the agent of light Rena. The stake she was killed with drained Galina's life force, and Alisa's suspicion falls on Anton as she returns to the hotel to report back to Zavulon. He ignores her calls for a meeting with the vampire butcher Gennady, so instead of waiting downstairs, she uses magic to drive along the side of the building and in through a window. When she pulls up in the hall, Zavi reacts like this is just a regular occurrence, while Gennady slinks away having done something naughty. Zavulon orders Alisa to find evidence linking Anton to the murder, so she visits his vampire neighbor Kostya, whose father is the butcher. He's resisted drinking human blood his whole life and admits to seeing Anton talking with Galina the night of her murder from his window. Meanwhile, the prime suspect returns to Night Watch headquarters, where all of the agents, including Ilya, have gathered for a meeting. Gesser tells all of the agents who don't know the identity of Anton's son to depart through the Gloom and forces the mage Olga to switch bodies with him for protection. He knows that Anton was in the archives during the time of the murder, but would never admit to stealing evidence in order to protect his son. Now a woman with all of the accompanying parts, the Night Watch send Olga's body with Anton to stay with Svetlana. She's unaware that it's her boyfriend, so as they're driving, Sveta confesses to loving Anton, causing him to crash the car in his distraction. They walk the rest of the way to her apartment, and when arriving, Sveta takes a shower while Anton builds up the courage to tell her the truth. She asks him to bring her a towel, which is when he decides to confess that Gesser switched their bodies, sending the naked girlfriend into a fit of rage. It doesn't last long, as they're soon in the shower together, while on the other side of town Olga arrives home inside Anton's body. The whole idea was stupid to begin with, as Kostya can immediately tell it isn't him, so Alisa shows up to ask for his help in identifying the real Anton. They're both attracted to each other and want to take it further, but the ring that connects Alisa with the big guy prevents her from being with her little boy toy. Meanwhile, the real Anton and Svetlana go to a restaurant, but they discover a dead Dark lying in the bathroom as somebody's successfully trying to frame him. Gesser shows up, but before he can relocate them, the Dark Ones bring their whole vehicle into the Gloom by order of Zavulon. Alisa gets her head pulled through the window by Gesser for not asking politely, but he still hands over Anton and Olga's body to maintain the truce. Svetlana couldn't care less that it's forbidden and headbutts the absolute crap out of Zavi until Gesser steps in. She then summons a bus to crash into Zavi, but he's actually a real immortal and not just got a million weaknesses like a vampire. Just because he bleeds doesn't mean they can kill him, so Anton kicks away his captor and attempts to flee when Zavulon gets angry. He wields a power cable like a bullwhip, destroying everything in its way to reach Olga's body, while Sveta lets off a little burst of nothing much as she's still learning. Fortunately, Anton makes it to a taxi and gets away, but a neutral faction called the Inquisition give Gesser until dawn to prove his innocence. Anton meets up with Olga at the airport to switch back to their old bodies before catching a flight to Tamerlane's tomb to obtain the chalk. This whole flight is pointless, as Olga reveals when they're halfway there that she already checked the tomb in 1941, but it wasn't there. She says that Zoar was Tamerlane's right-hand man, which Anton realizes is what the legend meant by the chalk rests in his right hand. They use their powers to turn the plane around and receive no pushback from the cheerful bartender, who just hands over the magical artifact. Anton writes Yegor's name on the blackboard, who suddenly appears outside in the cold, so the father rushes to the kitchen to fetch him some food. The jealous little cretin then takes an incoming call from Svetlana and tells her to leave them alone, as Anton has a family already. When he returns, however, Anton says that he's still a part of the night watch, so an upset Yegor smashes the phone and runs off into the cold night. He's long gone when Anton discovers his son has stolen the chalk and tries to hitch a ride, but the Dark Ones have found it. Anton manages to hop away, avoiding all of the vehicles, and jumps through the gloom to land in the subway station below. The Dark Ones follow him underground, so he leaps onto a passing train to escape, but the poor security guard gets kissed to death. Meanwhile, Yegor returns to Zavulon and presents him with the chalk, but Gesser calls to remind him that they're unable to use it as part of the truce. He suggests that Yegor give it to Alisa for safekeeping, but she uses it to summon Kostya, who immediately wants to run away with her. There's another knock at the door as Zavi's come to collect Alisa for the party, so she pretends that the boy's there to help identify Anton. They had previously sent a spy who transforms from a parrot into a dark mage named Poppy to keep an eye on Anton while he travels. He doesn't take more than a single strike to bring down, and Anton presses his face into the snow to craft a transferable impression. Now looking like Bird Boy, he's able to attend Yegor's birthday party at the Hotel Cosmos without being noticed by security. Except for this one, who punches Anton right out of his disguise and into the gloom, but is unable to follow. Now probably concussed, Anton staggers into the hall and finds himself suddenly standing in a crowded room, being handed a microphone to say a few words. The Dark Ones all laugh at him, but Anton begins to get through to Yegor with kind words, so Zavulon switches the mic to a drink to shut him up. It's laced with blood, causing Anton to feel like he's drunk, so he sits down with the witch Darya and her creepy little spider baby thing. He learns from her that Alisa has the chalk before taking the microphone to reveal to the whole room who really murdered Galina. Anton has figured it out that Kostya's father made a deal with Zavi to keep his vampire son safe in exchange for framing him for murder. He all but confirms it when trying to stake Anton, but Kostya gets between his father and friend as the two Inquisition twins suddenly show up. Now that all the hard work has been done, they take Gennady away for his crimes and pronounce Anton innocent of all charges. Kostya charges at Zavulon with the stick for setting up his father, but he reverses and drives it through Kostya's heart while pretending to do the tango. Alisa's the only one who seems to care, but Anton prevents her from running to her dying boy toy until she hands over the chalk. During this time, Svetlana's been driving around in a taxi and uses her magic entroscopy to track down her boyfriend's location. She arrives at the hotel as Zavulon clutches Kostya to his body and leaps through the window, killing the only one of them not actually immortal. When she enters the hall, Anton looks like he's having the time of his life, which is when Zavulon fools Yegor into believing that Sveta's the real enemy. Thinking that his father's moved on from her, Yegor uses the needle in Svetlana to begin draining her life force. Meanwhile, Simeon and Olga race across town to the Cosmo Hotel, where a truckload of Dark Ones tries to run them off the road. Motorcycles exit the back but make the dumbest attempts to bring down the night watch. They just end up taking all of themselves out instead. Simeon then drives his tank of a truck right through the Dark One's vehicle and out the other side, completely unscathed except for the rod that kills him. Olga makes it to the hotel alive, where all of the other agents of light have gathered to attack should the Dark Ones break the truce. Svetlana attempts to flee and is confronted by Yegor in the hallway, but this is still just a child who can be tossed aside like a ragdoll. A legend says that when two great ones spill a single drop of their blood, it plunges the world into darkness, which is why Zavulon orchestrated this whole birthday party. Suddenly, a yo-yo in the hands of Yegor turns into a weapon of mass destruction and completely destroys the party as well as half of the attendants. It blinds Svetlana, which could have been worse, and flies out over the city of Moscow, where it lays waste to the buildings in a matter of minutes. Olga and the other agents help evacuate guests when the atomic yo-yos return and destroy the cosmos as well as the other half of the city. During all of this, Gesser has been taking photos for his album and tells Anton that the only hope left is for him to find the chalk. Alisa finally manages to get the binding spell off her finger by severing it, which Zavulon feels and goes searching for her as well. Using the witch's little spider baby to lead the way, Anton locates Alisa, first writing Kostya lives over and over again, but it doesn't work because she wasn't at fault. Anton's to blame, but before he can leave the hotel, Svetlana and Yegor each grab one of his arms and begin a tug-of-war match with him. The building collapses as a large shard of glass falls right for Anton's head to slice him down the middle like a Subway sandwich, but everything suddenly freezes. Gesser has frozen time so that Anton can take the chalk to the apartment building where he first discovered that he was a mage. It's here where he needs to write no on the wall, causing everything to revert back to 1992 when he made a deal with the Dark Witch. Anton refuses to ever get involved with Darya and leaves the apartment, crossing paths with the still living Simeon on his way out. The Night Watch recognize him, but Anton's human again, so he's unable to remember anything or recognize Svetlana on the street. Gesser and Zavi make bets on whether Anton has the balls to initiate contact, and despite the dorky haircut he wins the Lord of Light a few ruble. And the movie ends.